Hi guys, MrRoflWaffles here. This is everything I loved when I played the Edge of Fate expansion early at Bungie HQ. To be very clear, this video is going to be focusing on positives. It's things I loved, but I have separate content which talks about my critiques and the negatives. The reason I'm splitting it up this way is there is so much to cover, so I'm doing a big positives video, a big negatives video, and then I'll do like a sort of more condensed reviewy, impressions-y type situation, but they'll all be going up on my channel at the same time, so you can watch with the level of detail that suits you. There are also a few things to note here. Number one, you'll notice that raid is sort of redacted in the corner here. I don't know how much I'm allowed to say about that topic, so we're going to save that to the very end. Bungie's going to review this video before I post it, and if they tell me to cut out that stuff that I'm going to say, which is very minimal really, then I'll cut it, or it'll make it through. We'll see. But for everything else, we've got plenty to cover. So let's get started with everything I loved about the Edge of Fate, beginning with the portal. Now, this might be a little controversial because people love the director, and I love the director as well, but the portal is the new main menu screen, basically, for Destiny 2 that is going to funnel players into different activities. And there are things that I don't like about it, which, like I said, I'll cover in that other video, but there are some things about the portal that I think are really positive. To start with, the portal makes the game significantly more customizable to your specific either playstyle, interest, level of difficulty that you feel like on a given day, or any combination of the above, than it's ever been before, as far as I've ever understood it, at least. Because you can queue into an activity, and if you're the sort of person that's like, I don't care about having a HUD, let me get slightly better rewards by taking my HUD away, then you can do that. And that goes for so much stuff in the game. Oh, I don't really care about fighting this particular enemy type. I don't really care about receiving this kind of elemental damage. Let me just crank it up and then get better rewards. This is something that I kind of wish was already in the game, because like right now, for example, let's say I'm just trying to sort of grind out some Pathfinders or something and I have to run a load of strikes or something like that. The strikes themselves are just boring. Like, I feel like I'm just like speedrunning and I'm like wasting my time. Whereas now, I'm not going to be wasting my time anymore because I can make them actually fit the difficulty that I'd like to be at. And that's a massive change, I think, for the game, and something that the portal has made possible. So that's something I really applaud. Now, I've also got new power curve here. We'll talk about that in a second, but first I want to talk about the understanding what to play section. So I think right now in Destiny, you've got people that will do like their weekly pinnacles and stuff like that. But outside of those sorts of things, sometimes it is a little unclear, like, okay, I'm a new player or I'm jumping in this week. Like, where should I be putting my time? What should I be doing? And I think the portal is beginning to take some steps to answering that question for people. I don't think that it is a complete, universal, perfect panacea solution just yet, but it's a step in the right direction. And so what I want to kind of praise here is not the fact that I think it completely solves the problem of what you should be doing with your time in Destiny, but rather it helps simplify part of the equation. So it will be very obvious to you that you can play whatever you want. You can play your solo ops, that's your solo activities that last like 10 minutes, or you can play your fireteam ops with a squad. You don't have to worry, oh, is this one going to be match made, or do I need to bring in a squad for this, or like, what if I have no friends? It's a little bit more served up to you as to what the circumstances are around a given activity. And they all, literally all of the stuff in there, all funnels you towards the same goal, the same end result. And that's basically leading to this new power curve that I've mentioned just here. So I also think that this is a positive almost in its own right. Like, I could extract this from the portal, place it somewhere else on here, and it would be a completely valid section. So you know what, let's just do that. Ta-da! Power curve. Let's talk about it. So I don't know how many times in the past Destiny has brought our power back down, or crunched our power, or reset our power, or whatever, right? I'm newer to the game. But what I do know is that right now we're at what, like 2020 power cap or something. And then I think that with the seasonal artifact, you can get above that, but it's not by a crazy meaningful amount. So let's say there's a lot of people right now at like 2030 power. For a new player, looking at other people being at 2030 power and remembering also if they're a returning player, when I played, I was at 500 power. That visually looks like a massive disparity. And it means that a lot of people are like, well, I can't play Destiny because I'm so far behind. I'll have to grind through years and years of content just to get up to power. And even though we know that that's not true, like you can literally just get the chest from the sort of social area in Right of the Nine and get yourself to 2020 and it's an easy catch up. The new players considering jumping into Destiny don't know that. And Bungie recognizes that that is a visual issue for new players. And so bringing us back down in power, that alone, I think is a good move in my opinion. But the interesting thing is that the power curve is now split into your permanent power and your seasonal power. And there's things here that I don't like, and I'll talk about that in the other video, but what I like about the system as designed right now is the way it also interfaces with the armor rework, the guns rework, like everything that they're reworking in terms of core systems, because they really do all mesh together in quite a big way, and it's quite a grand vision for altering the way that people engage with Destiny season on season or expansion on expansion. So the idea is going to be that in the portal, you can just do any activity basically, and slowly but surely, that is going to help you progress your power level. So your power is going to go up and up based on you doing stuff in the portal. Now, as you do that, a few things are going to happen also in the portal. Number one is that you're going to start seeing on the customize screen before you go into an activity that you're going to start unlocking higher difficulties. And the more difficulties you have active, or rather the higher difficulty that you select, the more modifiers or challenge modifiers you're going to be able to put onto a given run to make it more difficult. What that's going to do is it's going to mean that you'll be able to boost the rewards that you get, like I mentioned before, but the system that evaluates that is basically looking at the difficulty of the activity that you've selected and looking at your reward rank and then saying, okay, you've put on especially difficult settings, so your reward rank is going to be higher, and if you get a really good score when you then play that, then yeah, we're going to give you more rewards. Like you'll get 2 drops or 3 drops instead of just 1 drop, and those might be higher tier weapons, or they'll be your powerful drops that you need to progress. And then because you'll be more powerful, you'll be getting more difficulties, so you can add more challenge, so you can get more drops, so you can get more power, etc., etc. You sort of see the flow here. So this sort of section of the board, and we'll talk more about the armor and the guns and stuff in a moment, but this section is really a cyclical, hopeful design that Bungie hopes people will enjoy engaging with. And the kind of extra juice that makes it all a bit more exciting is that as you do this and you start to get those higher tier weapons that we'll talk about in a minute, don't worry, you'll also find that they have a bonus for being used within the season that you get them in. Like when it's new gear, which has a specific marker, new gear, that is going to be moderately buffed relative to all of the old gear. And I suspect this will be controversial because some people will argue, oh, this is like a soft sunset, right? Where you've got old gear that's like 5% or 10% less good than some new thing that's come out that season. And there's an argument to be made there, and I'll explore that argument and that critique in my critique video. But for the purpose of this video, what I like about this system in theory is that it means that each season there is meaningful stuff for you to go for because you know that that season's weapons are gonna be good. You're not going to be just grinding for something from 5 years ago all the time, and then as soon as you've got it, you can like stop your gear grind. Similarly, right now in the game, the armor system has gotten pretty stale, right? Like most people auto scrap all the armor that they get because if you get a roll that's like a 47, why would you keep it? Like you don't care at all. Whereas in this new intention for this new system, you'd be going up this power curve, you'd be going through the power grind, getting to those higher difficulties, getting the higher tier rewards, and then at the end of the expansion and flipping into a new expansion, you'd have a new set of newly moderately buffed gear to go for. You'd also have your power brought back down, so you would keep your permanent power, which is up to 200, and then you would lose everything above that. And so you would then walk back up the power curve to get that high tier loot again. And so it means that there's a reason to play the following season, right? But you'll keep all of your tier 5 stuff from the original season if that's what you want to use. And it's not so big a difference that you absolutely have to use the new stuff. It's just like, yeah, okay, if I'm like trying to be optimal, right, because I'm a hardcore player, then yeah, I'll do the optimal thing and I'll go for the high tier loot. But if I don't really care about being optimal, then the world's your oyster. You lose 5% or whatever, it's not a big deal. So it's an elaborate plan, and it's something that I suspect some people are not going to like, but I also suspect that some people are going to be like, you know what? I actually care about going through that grind for my weapons and my gear in the current season. And like, it's an opportunity to do something fun now. And then you've also got that combined with the fact that they've been leaning into the seasonal artifact recently and giving us new like elements to play with each season and stuff like that. So that season on season or expansion on expansion, it should feel like a bit of a different flavor to those grinds, because one of the grinds you're going to be prioritizing your frost and your solar, as is the case, I think, in the current seasonal artifact in the Edge of Fate, whereas in a previous one, like in the current episode Heresy artifact, I believe there's been more focus on things like your Void, your destabilizing rounds, or your Bolt Charge, like stuff like that. Like different flavors at different times, which means that different builds are slightly more meta, which means that it should feel like some decent variation between those different seasons of play. But that's the theory. Right? It's all theory. And I totally recognize the fact that sometimes the theory on these things sounds great. And what I've just described, I think on paper sounds decent. But in practice, sometimes it sucks ass. That's just the way that these things go sometimes. And so, like I said, in my critique video, I've got a whole load of critique about what they're doing here. But for now, on paper, I at least like the fact that Bungie is thinking about this stuff. They recognize there are problems here, and they are making active, fundamental changes to Destiny to try and solve those problems. Holy moly, that's a lot of talking for just one section of the video. Okay, this is going to be a long one. Let's move on to the new location, the new story, and then we'll get back to some of the rework, fundamental core system design change stuff. So Kepler is a new space. I got to do an interview with Allison, who is just the absolute best. She is amazing. And Robbie. And we had an in-depth conversation about all of the design decisions that went into choosing Kepler in the first place and how they built that world out and stuff like that. That interview is on my channel. But for now, the high level is that it's a mysterious location that we are invited to. And on the location, there are lots of secrets and little puzzles and hidden bits and pieces. And there's also a new, like, sort of splinter group of humanity called the Aeonians that we get to interact with. So let me kind of separate these out into sort of gameplay and then story itself. We're going to start with gameplay. On Kepler, you've got the blue ball ability called Matter Spark, which we all saw in the reveal. There's also a relocator, which looks like, I forget exactly what it's called, but one of those rocket launcher thingies, like a fallen rocket launcher thingy. What's the name of those things? They look kind of similar. You've got a Rosetta, which is a way of decoding the Aeonian language, I believe, and you can use it to decode things in general. And you've got matter realignment, which is you sort of moving stuff around. And I think there's a bunch of other bits and pieces there as well. And each of these can be leveled up. So you can get Matter Spark 2, Matter Spark 3, Matter Spark 4 by doing various things. So what did that feel like, right? Like you go to a new location, you get a lot of new little tricks that you can do to access secret areas and solve puzzles and just sort of spend time in the world. And I think that there is some negative here that is in the feedback video, the critique video, but the positive here is that I really like opportunities in games to get a lot of new systems and then to combine them in novel, smart ways in order to get an outcome that I want. And there were a couple of times, not a huge number, but there were a couple of times where I was sort of putting my thinking cap on, being like, okay, so I can relocate to here. And then if I use that in combination with the realignment thing, maybe then I get onto this platform and then I Matter Spark because my Matter Spark's on a timer and I need to be in that spot before I activate it. And like, it was that kind of organizing the dance of all the new abilities that would then lead to you sort of like completing something. And I like that in theory. In practice, it didn't speak to me as much as I was hoping it would do. We'll save that for the other video. but they exist and they are verbs to be used for the player in game design terms. And that I like. And I like the fact that Bungie is also just sort of keen to experiment with this stuff. Like, we're not just getting to another planet where you land and then you hold W or maybe actually what you do is you pull out your Sparrow and then you hold W and you just have to sort of like go for ages to get to where you need to go. Like, that was very much the case in like the Dreaming City, for example. Like, you just land in there and then you're just like driving for a while. I personally am tired of that, you know? So it's nice to have a little bit of a mix up in the rhythm of moving through a space. And one of the things that they've done here, for example, is they've put in sort of these like fast travel-y, warpy things that mean that you can get from one area to another literally as if you're just teleporting. And it's a really nice little quality of life move. But on the flip side, and again, more on this in the other video, the fact that you even need to engage with these systems at all does mean that you can't just like brain AFK hold W to get to where you need to go the whole time. You do need to interact with the world a little bit. And that's going to mean that some people will be able to very skillfully do that, whereas others are going to be like, oh, let me remember whereabouts is the pad here that I need to shoot? Oh, there it is. Okay. And that will be friction for some people. Now, one of the things I do really like about Kepler is just the overall vibe. It's not that it was so visually stunning that I was just like lying back on the floor with my sort of eyes wide going, oh my God, I'm seeing the heavens in front of me. It wasn't that. I don't know. It was distinct enough that it felt like a new space, which I feel like in Destiny is probably not the easiest thing in the world to do because we've had so many of these things over the years. But it was distinct and also felt like there was a ton of stuff squeezed in there to just do. Loads of chests to find, and the ways to get to those chests were sometimes fairly complex, in other cases extremely simple, like almost frustratingly so, but again, the other video. But just overall, I felt like there's probably, I don't know, like a dozen hours of just like exploring content to do there. If you were only looking for chests, you could probably do that for a while and not find all of them because there's just so many. They are genuinely everywhere. It's like every new space you go into, it'll say that you've got a little mystery in the corner that you can solve, and those mysteries will be just a standard chest you need to interact with, or there'll be something a little bit more complex that requires you to use your new verb toolkit. And I like that, right? I'm a secrets guy, and if you start putting the word mystery on my screen, it's going to make me happy. I would always prefer a scenario where they are complex mysteries, and that's why they didn't always resonate with me, because a lot of them are very simple. But at the end of the day, would I prefer no mystery or a simple mystery? I'd prefer the simple mystery, right? So for that reason, I had a pretty good time on Kepler. And this dovetails with the story stuff because it's a new saga now, right? It's the Fate saga. Bungie recognized that they've had this massive, expansive light and dark saga for the last 10 years, but people know that that's over and they need to inspire their audience again if they want to hook them on more years and years of Destiny. And that's what the Fate saga is going to attempt to spin up. And from talking to Allison, my God, I trust that woman with my whole heart. She has such a deep understanding, I think, of what the story needs. And I don't mean that in terms of like whether or not people really want the Hive to do a certain thing on a certain like, I'm not talking like that. I'm talking in terms of very meta structural analysis of the story. I feel like Allison she's just got it. The way that she thinks about the composition of it all, the way that she's thinking about the overall arcs that we're going to be seeing. I felt from my discussions with her like we were in very good hands. There's an energy also that she emanates that is so infectious, and I can only imagine what that's like for the dev team. They must be absolutely all galvanized like crazy by her energy. It's so good, and it's starting to actually be visible in the game, right? With things like the Aeonians. They're a really cool group of people who are a splinter group of humanity that have been on Kepler for a very long time and yet have also interacted with us in very recent memory through Chestiny, right? So do you remember during the Chestiny puzzle, we got the Aeon terminal? Now we have the Aeonians. Put two and two together, that's something that we really need to explore, right? There's also stuff in the terminal that Allison says has not yet been even found yet as far as she's aware. So there's more there, And that's now leading us to this little group of humans on this strange planet. And what I love about this is that I just read Maracena, and I read the origin story of the Awoken, right? And I really relished this little nugget of story of a group of humans leaving the Traveler and embarking on their own journey, choosing their own fate, actually. And to now be embarking on the Fate Saga journey and see a similar thing having happened, like a splinter group of humans that are on this place and they're sort of separate to the rest of the world. Like, that's really cool. I love that sort of thing just in my space magic sci-fi universe. It's always fun. So I'm really excited from a story perspective. But I also want to talk a little bit about the design of the story. I think that there's going to be some critique of this in my other video, but I know that Bungie wants to play with non-linear storytelling and stuff like that. And at its face, I also really agree that that would be amazing for the game. I think that they're in a tricky position because if they start really playing with genre in a big way, like, for example, if they did a campaign that was like a psychological horror or something, or if they did a campaign that was like a racing game, right? Something like that. Like, if they fully flipped the script and just changed genre to mix things up a little bit, I think that would be one of the best things that you could ever do for Destiny, to just play in that way, to experiment. But at the same time, I think that there would be so many insufferable people being like, not my Destiny, get that out of here. I need another linear campaign that lasts 4 hours and that I don't have to think about and that I just play so I can get up to power and then I can never touch it ever again. You know what I mean? Like, I worry that they're between a rock and a hard place a little bit. And I think that for that reason, the non-linearity that I experienced in the Edge of Fate campaign, which was minimal because I didn't have loads and loads of playtime, I only played a select handful of missions, it felt like it was a step in a positive direction towards breaking up the flow of things a little bit, but not a leap, just a step, you know? But I'll take a step. I'm still positive about a step. I think it's a step that needs to be taken. It's just that I know that there are further steps ahead in that overall journey, if that makes sense. So let's talk about armor. Let's talk about stats. Let's talk about all that stuff because it's a big deal. They've got this new tiers system, right? So you'll look on the little icon of your gun, and if it's got 5 pips, that means it is tier 5. But to begin with, at the start of the power curve, nobody's going to be getting tier 5s because tier 5s are only available from pretty hard activities. You need to be high power and achieving a high performance score in order to get them. So let me break down how that's going to work. Like I said before, you've got your 200 permanent power, right? That's your initial power chunk. And then you've got your seasonal power that will layer on top of that. And let's say you get up to 300 power, for instance. At that time, you cannot earn tier 5s, as far as I understand it. They are just not earnable at 300 power. And so you're going to have to continue your power grind further to start getting to higher power levels so that you can unlock higher difficulties, so you can put on more modifiers, and the combination of all of those things will mean that you'll start earning your tier 5s. So what I wrote down at the event here is that if you're at platinum difficulty reward rank, which is basically silver, gold, platinum, diamond, like it works like that. If you're at platinum, which I believe is probably something like 400 power or something like that, that equivocates to you being at platinum, then you need a difficulty rating of A+ in order to get a tier 5 drop. And an A+ is basically whacking on a ton of modifiers. Like, you're going to have a lot of extra challenges, like damage taken while airborne is increased, and no HUD, and not swap, and like all these other things combined together. That's going to get you your A+. But if you're at a higher power, such as like 500 power, for example, which won't be available until after Ash and Iron, because the soft cap on power before then is 450, I believe, and I think it's then going to be 550 once Ash and Iron is out. So let's say you're at 500 power, then I think you'll be at Diamond reward rank based on your power level. And when you're in Diamond, or at least the right place in Diamond, because they also do have tiers that I don't fully understand just yet, but within Diamond, I believe you just need to, for example, get an A instead of an A+, and that will still get you tier 5s. So because you're at higher power, the game is sort of rewarding you for having done that grind, and so you can get your tier 5s with slightly fewer crazy modifiers enabled in that match. So, a little confusing. We'll talk about that in the feedback video, but what's the difference between these tier 5s, right? Like, why would I care about getting a tier 5 gun if I can just get it at tier 2 easy peasy? So here are some examples, right? Tier 1 is just a base weapon. At tier 2, you're going to get an enhanced trait. So they're changing the way that the enhancement system works. You know, right now, you can enhance the weapon, and then you'll get the little enhancement on the weapon perk, and you'll get a little boost on your trait. That system, I think, is being sort of flipped around a little bit now. So tier 2 gives you an enhanced trait. Tier 3 gives you an enhanced trait and multiple perks also. Tier 4 is enhanced trait, multiple perks, and then you also get your mods, magazine, or barrel enhanced. And then tier 5 is your enhanced trait, your multiple perks in 3 columns, whereas all the previous was 2 columns. You get your enhanced mods, magazine, barrel, or origin trait, or maybe and origin trait, and you get cosmetic, ornament, and holo chip, which basically means that you get a custom skin. Any tier 5 comes with a custom skin that you can equip, and that sort of indicates that it's a tier 5, that it's special. And then I think you can also get shinies of everything, but in my understanding, that's a separate system. And armor has a similar sort of flow from tier 1 to tier 5, but the sort of juicy thing I think that most people are going to be most excited about, other than just getting shiny armor with cool sort of shaders on them, is that at tier 5, and I think also at tier 4, but I could be mistaken on that, you're going to get 11 energy instead of 10. So you're going to be able to use some extra mods or some extra mod combinations that you wouldn't normally be able to do with just 10 points available, because you're going to have 11. So more or less, this is Bungie's way of saying, we've got so many different forms of weapons in the game right now, and we've also got these things currently that we call adept, and there's sort of some confusion about exactly how this stuff works. Let's try and simplify it and just make it so that the whole game is basically built around you getting adept shiny weapons, which are your shiny tier 5s, or adept shiny armor. And I have to say, as much as I think that this is confusing right now, I think it will be a better system in the long run. I think. I'm not an expert. I obviously have not been playing Destiny for a crazy long time, but my impression is that this is a better fundamental system for them to build on rather than the current system right now. It's just a bit easier to look at a gun when it's got these pips on it and be like, you know what? That's a tier 2. I can be more confident that I want to scrap that tier 2 because it's not a tier 4 or a tier 5, right? Like that alone, for me, as a player who struggles so much with inventory management in Destiny 2, it's probably my primary pain point in the game. The fact that this is just going to make it a little bit easier is so good. And granted, there may be a world where I get like a tier 2 weapon and it's actually got the god roll perks, the exact ones that I need, and I don't need to worry about ever getting a tier 5 because I've got what I wanted. I got what I came here for, right? That is still possible, don't get me wrong. But the fact that outside of those niche scenarios where that very rare event would happen, I can much more easily be like, you know what? I just want to grind for a while until I'm at tier 5 or until I'm earning these tier 5s from this power curve. And that's where I'm going to start being more picky about what I'm getting. That's where I'm going to start being more picky about what I save, what I vault, what I don't, etc. So that's why I think this is a good improvement to the system. Now, if Bungie wanted some feedback for what I think needs to happen next, like in Renegades, for example, I think that you should be able to sort of pre-configure a certain weapon in the game as like something that you are chasing. And then when that thing shows up, it should show you that it's shown up so that I stop scrapping the gear that I'm grinding for by accident. Like that would be just lovely. As it stands, that's not in the game. And that's okay, but you know, it's a step in that direction, so cool. Now, the rework that's happened here also combines perfectly with the stats rework as well that's happening for your just sort of like base Guardian stats that come from your armor. So goodbye Resil, you will probably not be missed. I think that for most people, the armor grind has been long over for a very long time because of the reasons that I explained earlier. And so mixing things up a little bit so that armor is something worth chasing now is definitely worthwhile, and this new system is going to introduce that. Now, again, I'm being positive in this video. There's a separate critique video with some of the issues with this system, but let's explore the positives because that's what we're doing here. I think that one of the massive benefits of the stats rework is that each individual piece of gear that you get is going to have a gear archetype. So, for example, that might be Brawler, where your primary stat is going to be melee and your secondary stat is going to be health. Or it might be Bulwark, where your primary stat is health, your secondary is class, and that's it, right? Like, the way it's going to work is each of these archetypes has these two primary stats. And to give you an example of how this affects me, right, in my armor grind, currently, if I get something and I've got good, like, Resil, then I'm happy. Like, Resil's pretty much where I start, always. But then, while I'm looking at my Resil, if I see that, oh, that's unfortunate, there's also loads of points in Mobile, for example, I just kind of scrap it. I'm just like, okay, I don't care. I'm going to get rid of you, right? Similarly, Int is something that I think PvP people build into, maybe, but I don't care about it. So I just scrap anything that's got high Int because I know that stats have been wasted, right? And the whole like wasted stats thing is going to be much less of a concern, I think, in this new system because things are spikier, and where they are not spikes, there's less of the trash that you don't want. And this also means that there's room to then play with going over 100, which is this new system that they've added. And I thought this was pretty cool. I think it's a fun way to customize your build a little bit further. And admittedly, it's like, it's tiny little percentage tweaks in terms of the difference that it makes. But I like that sort of stuff. Like, knowing that you can squeeze out an extra 5% here or there is just, it's fun. It's fun for the end game, high skill players. And I don't pretend that that's me, but there's definitely a lot of the folks in my chat, and they really help me to understand a lot of the builds that people are developing and stuff, which has made the game so much more fun to play and to try and learn so much about, because the complexity of Destiny is admittedly what makes it fun as much as it is also what makes it hard for you to understand what to do sometimes. So let's go through a couple of these stats and just kind of explain like the way that they're different now. So there's now a health stat instead of a Resil stat. And that stat increases the amount of health you gain each time you pick up an orb and reduces flinching from incoming fire while aiming a weapon. So you gain health per orb and flinch resistance. But if you go over 100 health, you then get an enhanced benefit, and that's that your shields recharge more quickly and have additional health when facing combatants. And so your shield recharge rate, for example, will be boosted by 5% or 10%, and your shield health will also be slightly increased as well. Let's rattle through a couple more of these. Super increases the amount of super energy you get from all sources, and the enhanced benefit is it increases the damage done by your super. Grenade reduces your grenade ability cooldown and increases the amount of grenade energy from all sources. And then the enhanced benefit over 100 is it increases the damage done by your grenades. Class, this is one that I built into at the event. It reduces your class ability cooldown and increases the amount of class ability energy provided by all sources. And then the enhanced benefit is that you gain an overshield when you use your class ability. Then for weapons, it increases your weapon reload speed and handling and increases weapon damage against minor and major combatants. And that's a 10% boost and a 15% boost if you've got it maxed. And then the enhanced benefit is that ammo bricks from defeated targets have a chance to contain additional rounds, and it increases weapon damage against bosses and opposing guardians. So the question you're probably wondering is, okay, it's all well and good, Milo, you rattling off all of these stats. Do they make a difference? And honestly, it feels like they do. Like, if you've got no super stat whatsoever, your super goes real slow, man. Like, it really does feel like it's very slow. Similarly, I've actually got this clip provided by Benny. Thank you so much, Benny, for sending this over to showcase some of the differences in PvP between going no armor and therefore 0 weapon stat versus speccing into the weapon stat and testing out your damage against another Guardian with 140 hand cannon. And as you can see, it's not such a big difference that you would absolutely be slaughtered if you weren't using any weapon stat here. But at the same time, I suspect there's going to be some really interesting build potential with people who run the numbers and figure out, oh, okay, even if I'm just doing 2 more damage with this one gun, that means that I can get the kill before I need to reload, or like those sorts of things, or I can get 3 kills in one clip instead of 2 or whatever it might be. And that really might shake things up in PvP, and it should mean that they continue to sort of shake up over time as well, I think, as new weapons are added. So that's pretty exciting. I thought that was a pretty sort of interesting side effect of this specking over 100 thing that we now have, and the fact that the weapons slot, or the weapons stat rather, exists at all. That's pretty cool in my opinion. Oh, also, by the way, if you want to check out more PvP specific big brain knowledge, I've linked Benny's video in the description down below. He knows all there is to know about it. So don't come to me for that kind of information, because I just can't help, really. I don't have the expertise, but he does. So that's linked below. Thank you, Benny, also for letting me use your clip. And then somehow, holy moly, there's so much. On top of all of those things, there's set bonuses now. There's one called Bushido. There's one called TechSec. There's one called Aeon Renewal. I've got a separate video that talks actually in some depth about these set bonuses and about the new exotics. So if you want to watch that video, it's linked in the description or in the corner of the screen or somewhere right now. Just click onto my channel, you'll find it. But what I want to say that's positive about the addition of these set bonuses is that there was always a risk that they would add set bonuses and they'd be way too overpowered. Like, way too overpowered. It's something that I've seen other similar games fall into the trap of before, and then they need to walk it back and get rid of the set bonuses or nerf them into the ground, and it just means that nobody's happy in the end. But I think Destiny is currently stepping into it in quite a smart way, because they have some fun use cases, but they don't seem overpowered, at least from my completely newbie perspective. Okay, so let's take Bushido as an example. It's going to mean that if you fully spec into it and you get 4 Bushido items, you'll then get extra damage resist when you're using your sword and getting final blows and continuing to use the sword. And I think that's really cool. Like, give me a reason to use this slightly more janky weapon. Like, what are you going to pick most of the time? A sword in your heavy slot? Or, I don't know, the Thunderlord? You're going to pick the Thunderlord, right? 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 Yeah, no matter how much you hate the burgers that use that weapon, in that scenario, unless you're edging eagerly, then you're probably going to be picking the T-Lord, right? Like, just probably, because it's just going to do more damage than a sword is going to do, and it's going to be less fiddly, it's going to be less annoying. So, yeah. But now, with the set bonus, maybe you reconsider a little bit. Like, I like the fact that it's opening up room for current non-meta stuff to maybe have a place in the meta. And the risk is that it goes too far, and it then means that the non-meta stuff becomes the meta, and that's what you want to kind of avoid. And so far from what I've seen, and again, more info in the other video, they seem pretty good. I think similar, to be honest, applies to the new exotics. I don't think that they're the insanest, craziest things that I've ever seen, but they were fun. They were fun to use. I really like the hand cannon. I think the Graviton Spike is probably my favorite of all of them, because you can kind of juggle your arc and stasis abilities on one weapon. But because it's arc and stasis, I feel like that also makes it more situational. Like, if you don't have any seasonal buffs to arc or stasis in a given season, then the gun is going to be less useful. And if you've only got buffs to one of them, like only buffs to arc, for example, and none to stasis, then it's just going to be like, maybe I just use an arc exotic that's not this then, right? Like, I feel like it makes it more niche because of that, but I also like the fact that it's kind of niche, and there's going to be a scenario in like 5 years' time where this specific weapon is going to be crazy useful in like a raid or something, just because of the way that it can juggle in this way. I can see that happening. So it's fun. It's a fun gun to use. Now, another thing that's incredibly positive about the Edge of Fate is the firing range. Bro, they cooked here. I don't know how this didn't make it into the game earlier. Like, honestly, I feel like this could have come out 5 years ago and it would still have felt late. But it's here now, and I'm not in this video here to be snarky. I'm here to be positive, right? So I'm very happy that the firing range is in the game. It's just a really welcome addition, I think, in a game where currently damage testing from the other creators that I spoke to is not the easiest thing in the world. It's been a pain, like having to sort of find an ogre that can take enough damage from you to test all your weapons out. It takes time, right? And time is precious in Destiny because the game's already asking so much of your time, and to then have to go through extra hoops just to test a weapon or test a build or test a group build, not ideal, right? Whereas now you can just do it from the tower easy peasy. It's got several features. I think that there's also some Easter eggs in that little room, which is sort of something I want to dig into a little bit once the actual expansion is out. But overall, I mean, there's nothing negative to say about the firing range. It's a huge W, and I think that they should be applauded for that. Nice job, Bungie. Now, for PvP, there's not a huge amount of positive stuff to say, I will admit. But there is one thing to say, which is that it's nice that you're going to have specific drops from PvP that are going to be worth chasing in PvP, motivate people to play PvP, etc. And it's also nice that you can do your whole power grind in the portal in PvP playlists. You don't have to go elsewhere for it. I think that that is good. So as much as it's pretty minimal for PvP thumbs ups here, I mean, I'm sure there's probably some stuff in the stats reworks, etc. that are also positive for PvP. There's not a huge amount I can say about it because I didn't really get a chance to play the PvP at Bungie. Like, my station wasn't working properly, so I wasn't able to, unfortunately. But what was working at Bungie, that was a corny segue, was Bungie's attitude, man. I've got to give them some credit here, because I think this is the sort of thing that gets swept under the rug a lot. There is a world, right, hypothetically, where Milo, MrRoflWaffles, goes to a creator event put on by a video game company. Yes, this has happened in the past. And I get there and it's a complete mess. And it feels like the publisher kind of doesn't want creators to be there. Like, they're almost irked that creators exist in the first place. It's not well set up for you to get optimal capture. There's so many extra hurdles and friction in place that inhibit me from doing my job and inhibit the press that might be there trying to do their jobs and like all those sorts of things. And so I want to acknowledge the fact that in this scenario at Bungie, my first time at Bungie, none of that was the case. They were amazing. Genuinely amazing. I've been doing this for 16 years, guys. It's been a very long time. This was so well executed. The order of operations, the organization of it all was very good. They are very good at what they do. Whether it's the devs that were taking feedback and being very receptive about things that we didn't like. Like, I put my hand up several times and I was like, I just want to flag, I'm really not liking this thing that I'm looking at right now. Or this puzzle, I think, is designed really badly here because of certain things giving me the wrong feedback. Or, hey, I've just found a big bug that just like broke this, like whatever it might have been, because we were playing on an early build. There were things that I was calling out, and the devs were so receptive to all of that. They were encouraging it so much. And that's not an easy skill to build, right? To have that thick skin, to recognize that I'm not critiquing the dev, I'm critiquing the bug, right? And I'm helping mutually us work together to solve a problem so that the broader player base has a better time. But they were nailing it. So I want to give credit to Bungie for that. And I also want to give credit to their marketing and their comms and creator team that sort of all interchange and were all helping out with different things, because it was such a smooth event. Like, I had such a good time just by virtue of the fact that they had everything dialed in. They had a plan for everything. They were really accommodating when I was like, oh, I'd love to do an interview. They were like, let's set it up. There's actually going to be another interview coming in the future. So I've already done this one interview that's on my channel right now, but there's going to be another interview coming very soon because of the fact that I was like, hey, I want to propose this idea for a certain kind of interview. And they were like, let's make it happen, dude. Like, to be working with creatives that are excited to create with you, to co-create, like, cinema. It was so good. And I have to be honest, not all the companies that I've ever worked with have that approach. In fact, in some instances, they have the opposite approach. So it was very nice. So I wanted to applaud Bungie for that, because also, when was the last time you guys, in your critique of a game studio or your analysis of like, oh, Bungie's better than Ubisoft's better than EA's better than Activision's better than this, that, and the other, comparison, Microsoft, Sony, comparison. When was the last time you actually had any meaningful data about whether or not a game studio or a game publisher had a strong creator relations department? I feel like no one talks about that. Everyone just takes it for granted, but they were doing a really good job. So I wanted to give an emphatic thumbs up there. So there it is. We've been waiting for this. Am I allowed to talk about this? You'll find out in the next 2 seconds when we either cut to a clip of me saying, sorry, I couldn't talk about it, or a clip of me talking about it. So let's do that now. So raid information was sparse to the point of basically not even happening. But they did give us the name for the raid modification that they're going to be doing at a later date to the original raid release date. So you remember they put out that timeline like a year ago now or something, and it said that there was going to be like a different version of the raid or like something like that in the future. The name for that is Epic Raids, or at least the working name right now. And what they said, and they were very clear about, is that this is not a scenario where, let's say you've got like a 4-encounter raid. We're not going to be getting 2 encounters at launch and then months later getting the other 2 encounters in the epic raid. That's not what is happening here. They are not holding back content, but instead there's going to be some sort, and they were very general with wording on this, so honestly, don't even quote me, but I'm just trying to sort of convey general flavor. There's going to be some sort of modification and I think further story exploration and further challenge available in the epic raid, but it should absolutely not be thought of as, oh, they're like time locking the final encounter. Like, that's not the way it's going to be. And that's really good news to me, because when I first heard about this in whatever it was, the Dev Insight articles like a year ago, my worry was, maybe they're just trying to space out the development so that they can do a chunk of raid and then they can kind of get community feedback and then do the rest of the raid. But that's just not the case, which is really positive. But outside of that, they didn't tell us anything at all. Like, I didn't get any spoilers. I have no other information to report on the raid. Other than the fact that I have a crackpot theory. We love a crackpot theory. Basically, there's this Rosetta location ability, right, that you can use to decode stuff. And part of it lets you put in these Aeon symbol things into like keypads. I really, really think that there is a strong chance that in the raid, those symbols are going to show up and we're going to have to like do some Aeonian stuff. I got a sense for it. So mark my words, if in several months' time we see a weird Aeon panel thing in that raid, know that your boy saw that one coming. So that is my overall sort of spiel about the individual topics on Edge of Fate. But what's my overall stance, right? What is my comprehensive, positive side of my opinion? Again, with the negative stuff in the other video. Well, I think that there is a lot to love here. I think some of this is stuff that we won't really reap the true benefits from for a couple of years now. Like, a lot of the story stuff is going to take a while to pay off, despite the fact that the stuff that I played was fun. A lot of the fundamental changes are just sort of setting a better foundation for the next decade of Destiny, but they're not necessarily going to be something that is perfect straight away, right? So I think that there's room needed for us to be patient about what's happening here, while also recognizing that these are good bones, or at least I think that they're good bones, for a really healthy step towards a better Destiny coming in the days, weeks, and months, and years ahead. It was a new experience for me playing a Destiny expansion early, so I really wasn't sure how to cover all of this stuff as well, especially with my limited knowledge of the game. And so something I'd really love from you guys is just some feedback as to what you liked about this format, what you didn't like about the format. If there's any suggestions that you have, like any feedback for me, I would really appreciate any constructive criticism. That would be very, very kind of you. And also, like I said, I've got a whole video talking about all the stuff I didn't like, and that will be linked here on the screen for you to click through to. So check it out and let me know whether or not you agree more with the positive stuff or the negative stuff, or maybe you're in between. So click through now and I'll see you there. Hope you enjoyed this one.